Welcome again to another episode of the Global Latin Factor Podcast, where we talk about Latino everything. Thank you so much for being here and joining the community. If you have not subscribed to the channel and checking out all the amazing stories that we have amazing stories from different individuals of all walks of life, and you can be part of the community and check out their stories right now by subscribing. Today, we have an amazing individual. We have a passionate and dedicated bilingual financial advisor with a mission to empower individuals from all walks of life with sound financial planning. The founder of Blue Ladder Financial Planning LLC, and also Air Force Reserve, and much more. We have Omar Aguilar en la casa. Hi, how you doing?
Hey, doing great. Glad to be here.
Did I get everything right on your introduction?
Yes, sir, you did.
Sorry, I had to recover. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time. I know we met in one of the chamber events, the Coffee with the Chamber, the Hispanic Chamber, and Fort Worth Hispanic Chamber to be specific. And we connected. I kind of sort of told you a little bit of what I do in addition to my regular daytime. But I appreciate your time and appreciate you wanting to be here and let us know what you do.
Sounds good. Yeah, so my name is Omar Aguilar, and I'm a financial advisor and founder of Blue Ladder Financial Planning LLC, a financial planning firm dedicated to helping everyone, all walks of life, just pretty much get their start their journey towards financial planning.
Awesome. We're going to get to more of that, but first we're going to start with a segment that I like to call Preguntas Al Chile. Preguntas Al Chile. You like this, you like that. ¿Estás listo?
Preguntas al Chile.
Are you ready? Tacos o tortas?
Tacos.
Corn tortilla or flour tortilla?
Corn tortilla on the tacos, flour tortilla, si es some chorizo con huevo or something like that, of course.
Gorditas or pupusas?
Gorditas.
Gorditas. Mexican coca or jarrito?
That's a tough one. I'm going to go with jarrito.
Jarritos, what flavor?
Tamarindo o limon.
Ooh, tamarindo limon. Very refreshing. Agua de horchata, jamaica, or tamarindo?
No, actually, agua de limonada.
De limonada?
Yes.
Ooh, have you ever had limonada with jamaica?
I haven't actually heard you on one of the previous podcasts mention that. I'm going to have to try it.
Man, so refreshing. So good. Salsa verde or salsa roja?
Salsa roja, some chile verde that my mom makes with chicharrón también.
Yeah?
But everything else, salsa roja.
Does it have a home way of making salsa that is
good? Yeah, she definitely has a thing for it, and that's pretty much the only type of chile that I eat. That my mom makes, that chile verde con chicharrón. Delicious.
Chile verde con chicharrón, yeah. Favorito tamales. What is your favorite tamal?
Tamales rojos, but my suegra actually made some tamales the other day that were with rajas and some queso.
Yeah.
And they definitely hit the spot.
Yeah, awesome. Valentina, tapatio, or Cholula hot sauce?
Addicted to tapatio. Everywhere I go, I have to take a bottle of tapatio. Mexico,
Nice.
traveling, yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, enchiladas or chile rellenos?
Enchiladas. I'm not much of a chile relleno person, but enchiladas I'm okay with.
Awesome. Menudo or pozole?
Menudo. Well, pozole actually. Pozole. I
Yeah.
have to change my mind on that.
Okay, so they got the red one, the white one, the green one. Do you know which one you like best?
The red one, my mom makes uno de pollo. Man, that hits the spot as well.
Yeah, some people make it with pork, but your mom makes it with chicken.
Yeah, she'll make it with both, but with chicken, that's a little bit different, and I like it.
Nice. And now we're going to get to some desserts real quick. Churros or flan?
Churros.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, crunchy. Sugary. You can't have too many. We have a diabetes problem in the Latino community. You can have a little bit, but not a lot. Okay. Cumbia, salsa, merengue, or bachata dancing?
Man, I don't think I've ever tried some cumbia. I'm not the greatest dancer, but I can defend myself if I had to.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. A conspiracy, this is not even close to the same line of question as the other ones. A conspiracy theory that you heard one time, that when you heard, you're like, that could be true. Or like, that sounds true. What could that be?
But I don't believe in a lot of conspiracy theories because I feel that if someone actually knew something, people are going to be able to tell. I mean, imagine the ranchos where, you say one thing or a chisme gets out. Everybody knows it in 2 seconds. But a couple of years ago when I was going through basic training, we were just having, on a Sunday where everybody was just chit-chatting. And there was a guy that his dad worked for Area 51. And of course, we're all like, what does your dad do? What does he do? And he's like, I don't know. He doesn't really talk about it other than he teaches physics there. And we're like, what? He's like, he will never tell us what he does. But since then, he's kind of somewhat retired, but out there in Shreveport, which over there we have Shepard Air Force Base. And that's all that was said about that now he works out there at that base. And fast forward a couple years from now, we're with a couple people in my unit. We're chit-chatting about certain things. And topic of alien comes up. Certain people have seen certain things. And then we're talking about where they were, Area 51. And then somehow they got moved over here to Shreveport as well. And it just clicked in my mind that, hold on a second. I remember that one guy from Basic talking about his dad worked at Area 51 teaching physics, got moved to Barksdale over here in Shreveport. And I don't know, that one kind of.
Why are they sending them there?
Yeah, exactly.
Like the pattern that way. Is that the route?
So that to me intrigues me.
Awesome. When you hear the word Latino, Latina, what's the first few things that comes to mind immediately? What would that be?
If you identify with Latino, Mexican, just me being Mexican, but just having pride. If you say, hey, I'm Latino, you're pride. You have pride in where you come from and who you are.
Do you get offended if somebody calls you Latino? Do you prefer Mexicano, Chicano, or do you have a preference? Human being?
No, unless I know that specifically they're saying it from a derogatory point of view. But there's a lot of things that, I don't get offended by a lot of things. So very hard for me to get offended over certain things.
Awesome. I appreciate your service, by the way. Thank you so much. I know that you just re-enlisted.
I did.
How many more years?
3 more years.
3 more years.
Yeah.
And Air Force.
Air Force Reserves.
Yes, awesome. Again, if I was to redo it again, Army, I probably would have gone to Air Force too. But thank you so much. I appreciate your service. Okay, now you are first generation Mexicano. Yes. Your parents made it from, is it both your mom and your dad from Jalisco?
They are. Yeah, from a very small town, Rancho.
Can you tell me just a little bit of their journey to the U.S.? Did they ever share that story? How did they get here? Is there anything interesting about their story coming over?
Yeah, so my mom is the second youngest of 12, 13 individuals. And by the time that, she was growing up, she already had probably nephews that were her age. So for her, it was very easy to come over, become legalized. So she didn't really struggle in that aspect. But my dad, on the other hand, he had to cross the border illegally a couple of times. And I love to hear the stories that he has to offer to me.
Yeah.
And I was telling you that they're funny now, and he laughs about them today, but they definitely weren't funny back then when they were happening.
Of course. Yeah, tell me a little bit about what you used to have to do in order to make it.
Yeah, so he tells me one time that, of course, first time he came over with a couple of 2 adult individuals. Somehow they got caught, and they got separated, and they somehow tried crossing again. They made it, and he had to go back, and he just says that he remembers getting back to the rancho. And by the way, shout out to Los Azulitos, Jalisco. Los Azulitos, Jalisco. That's where we're from. And he ran into his dad. His dad was on the way to go sembrar, and he just remembers seeing his dad and saying, kind of when they see each other, they know what it meant that he didn't make it through. So it was like, hey, don't worry about it, mijo, vamos a comer, as I'm sure you're hungry. But there's definitely other stories of him running away from the migra when he used to work at the strawberry fields out in Oxnard, California.
Wow.
And just having to run for it, right?
Yeah, of course. And as soon as the migra gets there, everybody got to make their way, try to get away.
Yeah.
Oh, you said your dad was an athlete even back in the days.
Oh yeah, my dad's played sports even to this day. He's 62 years old, still plays baseball almost every single Saturday as a catcher
Awesome.
as well. So if I'm half of his health when I'm his age, I'll consider myself very lucky.
Yeah, so you were born in California, you was telling me, and for a little while you lived in Mexico, Jalisco, and then you made it back to the States. Now, anything interesting for you regarding going to school as far as here in Texas or California you remember at all whatsoever, or everything was just pretty normal for you?
Everything's pretty normal. I remember in Mexico, los maestros, they were definitely, hey, check your hands, make sure they're clean and stuff like that. If not, take them out and, con una regla. Exactly. So I remember that. I remember a lot of times in Mexico where things were a lot simpler than what they are today. And you kind of take it for granted, but you definitely, different time.
Yeah. Do you go back often? Have you been recently?
I haven't been recently. I think the last time I went was maybe about 7 years ago. We do go back to where my wife is from. She's from La Escalera, Durango. Again, shout out. So we go there often because she still has family members that live out there. Her grandpa, who's 100 years old, and they want to go back as much as possible.
Wow, 100?
Yeah, yeah.
That's incredible. Okay, so did you want to, as soon as you got out of school, high school, did you go immediately to college? Did you attend to go to college, or did you find a job into the financial services? Because you've been in there for some time now.
Yeah, it's been 17 years, and I did both. So my dad's like, hey, this is where life happens, right? The easy part is over. Now it's tiempo de trabajar. And I got very lucky. I started working for Chase. I was actually going to Tarrant County College as well to be in education, to be a teacher.
Oh, wow.
And I was telling you that I think the only reason I got hired at Chase was because I spoke Spanish and someone hit my card during the interview. So that kind of broke the ice, and that just led this whole journey, 17 years later. I never would have thought that I'm opening up my own financial planning firm.
Awesome. Okay, so you get to work for Chase for some time. How many years?
8 years.
Okay. Did you transition to financial advisor at the time with a firm? Is that even a thought? Who brings it to your attention that could be something that you could do?
So I started as a 20-hour teller. Very shortly after, there was some manager changes. Certain people, like always, drama, they didn't like each other. So people started quitting. And all of a sudden, in the banking world, the 30-hour position is a promotion from a 20-hour. So I was like, sure, I'll sign up for that when they offered it to me. And then shortly after there, I changed locations, and they're like, a 40-hour position is this is what you want? And I was like, sure, sign me up for that. And I just worked my way through the banking system as a teller, assistant banker, and then branch manager at a point. And it was always never, hey, this is the next step I want to do. It was just kept being offered to me, and I was like, okay, it means a little bit more money. Until the point where I was like, I'm making more money now than I would as a teacher. Do I really want to go to school?
Yeah.
So that's kind of when I stopped going to school. I wish I hadn't, and I tell different students now that, finish your school because you will always have that for the rest of your life.
Right.
Even to this day, I still take 1 or 2 classes. So one day, finish out my degree.
That's awesome. Okay, so now you continue doing the banking, very stable. When does the financial advisor path come to be? Is it in the bank itself? Because Chase has a wealth management
They
department.
do. And I remember a good friend of mine, David Cepeda, great mentor. I still talk to him to this day. He was a financial advisor, and he was one of the few financial advisors that wanted to be in the Latino community, helping out your people. And it was just, he started talking to me about it, different investment, things like that. And I was like, okay. Then it came to a point where Chase was changing. Chase is amazing bank where they're always leading and testing new things to see if they work. And I applaud them for that. But at one point it was like, hey, do more with less. And I found myself working more hours as a manager than as a banker and making less money because now you don't get that commission. So one of my old coworkers was working at a different firm and, just brought me over, and it was a great move.
It was financial advisor at that time?
Yes.
okay.
Yes. He's the one that kind of told me about it, and I started applying and just went through the whole
Okay. What company was that?
First Command.
So First Command, and at that point, they get you going. Of course, you got to have particular licenses, certification to be a financial advisor, right? So they start getting you to get those taken care of?
So Chase actually put me through most of my licensing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I already had that in the bag. So it was just mostly of, hey, do I fit the culture?
Okay. When you get there, how does it feel? Is it a big change from what you're accustomed to? Of course, a little bit of a relief because you're having to do so much work for, overworking you kind of, being most likely salary and not getting compensated. Now you get to do something different.
It was a big culture shock. First of all, a lot of people don't hear about First Command there because they really don't advertise much unless you're in one of these military communities, Air Force Academy, West Point, or things like that. So 80% of their clients are military, and I would say over 70% of their employees are also military.
Oh, wow.
And at the point, I wasn't. So it was definitely different because even though I already had my licenses, Chase has said, hey, here's the book that you need to learn to pass the exams. Once you pass the exams, okay, forget that. We're going to teach you what you need to do. And a lot of it, you really weren't, what you learned during the testing period, you really didn't apply it
Yeah.
with clients. So working at First Command, which they're a financial planning firm, first 3 months, I tell my wife that it was literally learning through fire hose, trying to drink water from a fire hydrant. It was just crazy. A couple of times I was like, what am I doing? Do I need to go back?
Wow.
So definitely tough.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of people don't realize a financial advisor is gonna be tough in the beginning. It's just like everything else, right? But at the end, it has its challenges, right? So do you still have to have additional testing after that? Even though you have most of the certifications, you still have to do some testing?
Continued education.
Uh.
So continued education now, it used to be where, heck, every 2 years you need 24 hours of continued education, and that's pretty much across the board. Teachers, you need like 150 every 5 years to do. I'm sure different nursing or medical field, you need continued education, and that's what you have to stay on top of.
Awesome. And during that time, does the military gets introduced to you as far as becoming part of the service at all, or when did that come about?
So I remember the first time I ever wanted to be in the military was probably about 7th, 8th grade, when I saw my older sister, go into high school and they have the JROTC programs.
Yeah.
And she comes home one Wednesday. That's when they had to wear their uniforms with an army, green coat and, her whole uniform. And I'm like, that looks pretty sharp. So that was the first idea. So of course, when I went into high school, joined their JROTC program. I was there all 4 years. And I kept telling my dad, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to fly for the Marines. And he was like, sure. Just kind of, brushing me off. And I remember one day there was a summer camp for JROTC at Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
Yep. I know the place.
Yeah. And he's like, sure, go ahead. It was a 2-week camp. I'm surprised because, Latino parents don't usually let their kids go. But he was like, you know what? This is what's going to stop you and say, hey, you know what? This isn't what I want to do. So I go to Fort Sill and wake up 4 or 5 in the morning doing PT, doing all this. And I come back and I was like, I'm sure this is what I want to do.
Wow. So the word, the opposite effect.
Exactly. So senior year, I was actually the commander for the JROTC. One of the sergeants there, very knowledgeable, was able to give me a scholarship with the Corps of Cadets at Texas A&M. But once again, when my dad thought that this was a serious thing, he was like, hey, how about you wait it out a little bit of time and we'll see, after a year, we'll see. Started working at Chase, starting, girlfriend, things like that. And I was like, okay. So it was just in the back of my mind up until I was talking to a First Command client. And I think he was like a captain that used to be a recruiter. And he's like, well, have you ever thought about the reserves? You're 30 years old now. You have a 1-year-old or soon to be 1-year-old. Have you thought about the reserves? And I was like, no, I hadn't. And that's what kind of planted the seed to go into the reserves.
And when did you actually make the decision to go and fully join?
Yeah. I guess when I enlisted was December 21st, 2019. And this is after a couple of months of talking to my wife, of telling her this is what it means if you say yes, because I wasn't going to jump in if I didn't have her support, because at the time we did have a, soon to be 1-year-old. So that's going to leave a lot of, baggage on her side that she has to take care of now for more than a few months at a time if we get deployed, and especially going through basic and tech school.
Yeah. How was, so she supports you. She sees that you really want to do this. You go through basic. How was basic for you?
Oh, man. I think it's funny because I think my wife tells me that for a second she thought that, man, is he really going to leave me? Like, was this like an excuse to leave, to divorce me or something? Because the first couple of weeks, you really don't have any communication. You get one call saying, hey, I made it. All right, goodbye. And then people kept messing up in my flight. And all right, you're not going to get any letters home. You're not going to get any, to send any letters. And they're pissed, of course, that I need to reach out to my wife. So it was definitely a struggle. But once we got the hang of it, of getting letters on a regular basis, exchanging it back and forth, kind of smoothed things out.
Yeah. How was basic for you? Was it tough at all? Somewhat challenging? Walk in the park now? You can laugh about it now.
I always tell people, and I think a lot of people describe it as the funnest thing you never want to do again.
Ever.
And I got very lucky because most of my flight was a lot of reserves and a lot of guardsmen that were reserved as well. Very few active duty. I think we had like 9 or 10 in my flight that were active out of like 30. So a lot of us were older. Had a 34-year-old police officer, a lot of 30-year-olds, and that's not very common, they would say. So it was a lot more chill. They would treat us a lot more like adults just because most of the flight was older.
That's cool. Okay. So first command, you're there for how long?
I was there right over 6 years.
6 years. After that, what makes you want to go ahead and begin? I know somewhere in there you're still thinking about the mentor you talked about, being into financial advisor for the Latino community. But what makes you want to go ahead and jump into doing your own thing? Was it something that you just didn't like the way they were doing? It wasn't for you, or maybe you just had another calling for your community to do the things that you do now?
So and it goes back to my dad. When my dad immigrated, he went through a few, I guess, obstacles, right? Just like any person that immigrates that doesn't know the language and things like that. And he tells me stories about how he's going there in line trying to communicate with someone, and he can't, obviously, because he doesn't speak English. But then you have someone on the side that's kind of laughing at him, saying, "Oh, look at him, he can't speak English," kind of thing. So he always remembers that, and he's like, "Hey, whenever you grow up, you speak both languages. You better be the one that stands up and helps that person, right? I don't want you to be like these other people that don't want to speak Spanish, don't want to help out their comunidad." So that always stuck with me. And he also says that there were some people that definitely helped him out, and he still remembers them to this day. So that was always in the back of my mind. And First Command if you read different things about First Command, you might find some harsh things on Reddit, things like that. They did some things that they thought were best for the military community at that point in time that didn't work out the best. But the platform that they set up where, you can start investing with $50. Back then, and you needed thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars to start investing. If not, advisors didn't really want to work with you because the more money they manage, the more money they get. And if you're going to bring $50 in, well, what am I really getting, right? So they set up a kind of the blueprint that I saw that, hey, maybe I can bring this into my community and it might work. It's going to take a couple of years, but if it works, it can help out the community where I was raised. So they kind of set the blueprint for that. And at one point, and I worked with some of the best managers at First Command, 2 of them, and one of them got a promotion, and she offered me heck, when you want to come over, I was at the home office, guaranteed salary plus commission. If you're an independent advisor for them, nothing's really guaranteed. There's no salary. So she offered me a really good compensation for the first year. And that's when I had to make the decision. Do I want to take somewhat, a promotion, or do I want to start from zero and take it my own way?
So you decided to make it your own way.
Yes. I'm a person that always somewhat takes risks. My wife is the opposite. She likes to be very secure, have a plan in place for pretty much everything. But
you had a plan, though, right? Like, in your mind, you had a plan that is.
Well, you have an idea of how
you already have the vision of what is it that you want, even though in the beginning it doesn't seem like it. But in your mind, you already seen what it could be.
Yes.
Putting the work in.
So I have that vision, but I tell a lot of people that have that vision is, how do you get there? The vision is probably the easiest part. The hard part is, how do you get there? How do you get from A to Z? And there's going to be a lot of obstacles. Luckily, I tell people that today we have everything ever written. We have it at our disposal, and we just use it pretty much to scroll up social media, right? Where we can be Googling different things on how to better ourselves and how to start something. So I knew that somebody else, I don't consider myself the smartest person in the world. I feel that there's people that are way smarter than me that have already created what my vision is or what I want to accomplish. I just have to go out there and find it and fine tune it to suit me. But before all that, I had to once again get the buy-in from my wife. Imagine, she has a really good job at Chase. That's where we met, and I'm a financial advisor making decent money as well. And now you want to tell your wife that you're going to start at zero.
how does even the approach come to be? What do you have to do before you get your mind right, prepared to have a
She
conversation?
kind of
Or do you have that relationship that like, hey, I gotta talk to you, I gotta tell you
Yeah, no,
stuff?
she kind of already, I had hinted, and she kind of knew what, that the community and helping out, the Latinos is a big passion of mine. So she had an idea, and when I told her, it was once again, let's walk through it. How is this going to look? Because we are losing one income, and how is that going to look? How is that going to affect our finances, our retirement plan? Being that she actually has a degree in finance. So is this going to mean retiring 3 years later, 4 years later? What's it going to look like? So luckily, once again, she knew that it was a passion of mine, just like it was with the military. And my wife has always had my back when it comes to the ideas that I've had and the paths that I want to take. And I wouldn't be able to do this without her support first.
Awesome. Okay, so you decide to take the leap. You decide to go independent, go with your own. What is the first step you start doing that? First of all, let's talk about the name. I think you said something about ladder, escalera earlier.
Yeah.
I don't know if it has tied to this, but how do you come up with the name Blue Ladder?
So once again, my wife came up with that a long time ago. A while back, when we were looking for a house, we had seen a house that we loved. Not the house, but the land. It was about 10 acres, 1,500 square foot home. But we're like, okay, this will hold us off for the next 10 years, and then we'll build. And we already have the land for it. And one day she's like, hey, I came up with our little rancho name. I came up with it. And I was like, what is it? She's like, Blue Ladder. And I was like, what? Why Blue Ladder?
Yeah.
And she's like, well, you're from Los Azulitos, Jalisco, the little blues, Los Azules. And I'm from La Escalera, and it's going to be ours. So Blue Ladder.
Yeah.
And when I was looking for a name for my company, that's the first thing that came to mind was Blue Ladder. It goes back to where we're from and the community that we want to help.
Man, talk about deep. I was reading a little bit of the escaleras when she said like,
Yeah, you caught on.
I think it's tied up to. I just got to put them together. That's
Yes.
neat.
Yes.
Okay, so you generate the logo and everything, and now you start shopping for what software you're going to be using to be able to do what you do for your independent business. So what is the process for you to trying to find which is the best software, which is the best way that you need to go for as far as doing your thing?
So that was difficult, and I actually thought that because I also do life insurance as well, and I thought the life insurance portion was going to be the easiest to be signed on as an independent agent with any kind of firm or life insurance company, and I thought that the investment firms, because it's so highly regulated, that was going to be the tough part. And I figured that that's not the case. Whenever you register as an advisor, registered investment advisor, there's more than enough people reaching out to you for them to sell their investment products, but not the life insurance.
Yeah.
And especially me, because I wanted to go through a specific life insurance company that I have personally for me and my family. And they were also tied to the previous company that I worked for. So they really didn't want to go through me first, or offer me the ability to sell their products, because they don't want to kind of offend my other employer, because they have 600, 700 different advisors versus me.
Yeah.
They don't want to, of course, piss them off. So it took some time, but luckily, finally, everything was settled in. And now was the hardest part was because, once again, there are a lot of planning softwares out there. I already had some experience with it, but then who's your custodian? Who's the person that's going to be holding your client's fund and being able to, run the investments through them? I did a lot of research, and especially because I did things. If I could go back, I don't know if I would change things, but I definitely did it a different way than other advisors do. And you're in the banking industry as well. When a financial advisor leaves a company, more than likely they're going to take a very good portion of their book of business with them.
The hop, supposedly.
Yeah, exactly.
Learned a little bit about that.
So what do I do? I'm managing a decent book, and I don't want to have that reputation or anybody to tell me, hey, Omar Aguilar and Blue Ladder Financial Planning are doing great or doing good because he took a big portion of his business from First Command or from, whoever, even Chase. But those aren't really his clients, that just happened, to follow him or whatever, even though I cultivated a relationship.
Yeah,
I didn't want that. So I didn't take any client whatsoever, with the exception of my family members and one really good friend that I actually, got him introduced to that, and I think he would have killed me if I would have left him behind. Um, but that's it,
Yeah.
you know. So I don't manage millions of dollars like other advisors do. Which custodian is going to allow you to use their product when you manage almost no money? So that was the difficult part.
Yeah. Finally, you settled in with.
There was two shareholder service group, but unfortunately they did things old school way, wet signatures, put a stamp, mail it out to San Diego, and we'll get it done in a couple of weeks. So that was really tough. I knew that wasn't going to work because I tested that on my own first. And there was Altruist as well, who are the newest player, founded in 2018.
Oh, wow.
But they are founded by a previous financial advisor that just wanted to integrate technology into everything. And I tell people that it's almost too easy to use. Their system is so easy. So I think my daughter, if I give her an hour to do it, she could, work the process and at least walk through what I tell her to do. It's that simple. And then it just integrates technology with what I want to do, DocuSign, e-signatures, connecting banks with investment accounts. So it does things very easy.
And it does align with the things that you were doing, such as like right now you're not doing the millions yet, so it's not hundreds of thousands of dollars yet. So they're able to be able to still willing to work with you.
Exactly, because they are starting off as well. So they kind of had a soft spot for people who are starting out. I'm not sure if that'll change in the future, but even a year and a half ago, they introduced that Altruist was buying SSG, which is the other company that I was looking, or the custodian that I was looking to go with. So now they've integrated together.
Awesome. Okay, so now how long you been with your company? Your with yourself. What year was established for you?
So this will be my second full year,
Second full year.
finishing off my second full year.
Okay. So how do you, of course, you have your immediate family and a good friend, but how do you go about starting to build relationship with other people, potential people? Of course, what is the most challenges that you find within our community of Latinos helping them out? We're trying to even understand what a financial advisor. If you was to tell me many years ago what a financial advisor, I don't think he would even want to talk to me because maybe I don't have 100,000 or more to be able to be invested or put anywhere. He might not even want to bother with me because he's not going to make any money out of me, you know?
Yeah, you're right. And that's it. I think the first part is the education portion, with my parents. And I always like to use my personal experience, my parents, myself, as an examples because, we've gone through it. I remember my dad, my mom, we're going to start an IRA. Y'all need to start an IRA. And they're like, ¿Qué es eso?
¿Qué es eso?
Why do I need that? And sometimes well, let me explain to you what it is. But if you've gone 50 years without knowing this, it's going to take some time for you to understand the process and things like that. But luckily, I built it, well, they've known me my whole life, of course, but they trust me enough to were like, okay, we're going to trust you with it. We have a couple of dollars that we can invest, and we'll trust you with it.
Explain to everybody, simplify para mi gente latina, what is an IRA and what is it important to do or have or even to know about it?
Yeah, so individual retirement account, cuenta individual de retiro, that you can deposit money up to 7,000 this year, and of course every year it goes up, based on inflation. But it's just a retirement account that you can take out after the age of 59 and a half. And hopefully, you put your money in today and it just continues to grow with the stock market, and one day have a little fund in there for you to, retire comfortably the way you want to.
Why 7,000?
It used to be different. I remember when I first started, it used to be like 1,600 or something like that, but they just continue increasing it with inflation.
Inflation? Does it got anything to do with the IRS at all whatsoever as far as the taxes, how much they charge, or how much they allow you to put in there, or not at all?
No, this just goes up. And if you're 50 years or older, there's a little $1,000 extra that you can contribute into that account called the catch-up.
Okay. And is it tax advantage, tax defer? What kind of tax are you expecting to pay at those 59 and a half?
So it all depends on my clients, right? For most of my clients, the Roth IRA is going to be the one that works out the best. Just because, and I like to explain, you have your traditional and you have your Roth. And ultimately, is the IRS is asking you, when do you want to pay your taxes? Do you want to pay them today or do you want to pay them tomorrow? Because the IRS is the biggest gangster out there. They're going to want their cut of everything that you make. And I tell people that if you get this cup and you bought it for $5, but then you sell it at a yard sale for $10, the IRS expects you to pay taxes on that $5 profit. They don't care how you make money, whether it's working, selling items, or investing. They want their cut. So when do you want to pay your taxes? With the traditional IRA, you don't pay it today, but you're going to have to pay it tomorrow when you start withdrawing those funds.
Okay.
And the example that I give is you deposit $5,000 in a traditional IRA. 5-10 years from now, or 20 years from now, when you're ready to retire, those funds, those 5,000, grows from 5 to 10 to 15. Well, you deposited 5, now it's 15. The IRS doesn't want taxes on the 5. They want taxes on the 15,000. Okay. With the Roth IRA, it's the opposite. You go ahead and you put 5,000, pay the taxes now. By the time you retire, it grows to 15. That 15,000, 100% yours.
Nice.
Sometimes it makes sense to do traditional if you're a high earner. Other times, Roth IRA.
Okay. So now with the education, where are you finding your clientele? Where is it word of mouth? Are you still testing your warm market? Is there you're going out in events to kind of sort of telling the people that you're doing this and that you're not the person that expects 100,000? Yeah, you're welcome to 100,000, but if you don't have that, I can help you out still.
The first one that I did was at actually the church that I got married at, St. Rita Catholic Church in East Fort Worth. And I think I kind of, once again, lucked out where the day that I was having my presentation, they also had a group that, meets there at the church. Somehow it didn't happen, but there were still some people that showed up and they were like, well, we got an hour and a half set aside, might as well come in and see what you have to talk about. So that was the first one. But it's very hard for people to come in and let you talk about investments, things like that, because they think that, well, is he really in it for the community or is it in it for himself? So trust. That's, I think with Latinos, the trust part is the hardest thing to push through, right? Because if you're offering something that nobody has ever offered them and you're a one-man show, from a company they've never heard about, well, then guards goes up, right?
Yeah.
So that was the thing, just offering different free financial literacy classes around the community centers, things like that.
Yeah. So far, that's the best thing that you found so far to try to kind of sort of bring those guards down and kind of sort of let them welcome you in to kind of sort of let them know how is it that their money, because money in the bank is not going to grow anywhere. Yes, you can have a high yield earning, but to be honest, compared to everything else, it's just not going to make enough money.
Right.
So that's what a lot of people mean, what put your money to work means, It's not letting it sit there, having us bankers, have the bank, because you need it, right? It's just part of the whole system. There's nothing against it. But it's all needed, right? You need to have funds to be able to lend people money. And same thing that in order for your money to grow, if you letting it sit there, it's just not going to do anything for you, right? So you got to kind of sort of put it to work in some ways or other. So finally, with the education, you kind of sort of found that that's the way they kind of sort of bring their guard down a little bit to let you in and kind of sort of have a conversation.
Yeah, and it's the majority of my clients, my goal is one a month. And I'm not going after your multimillionaire client. So it's definitely, I'm not swimming like Scrooge McDuck in a pot full of gold, things like that. But I think the biggest thing is the education portion, and then now referrals. Once they see that, hey, this guy's not in it for himself, and he's been here now 2 years and he's still preaching the same thing. So let's see what he has to offer, kind of thing. And once again, I don't have a huge book of business. I have about 36 clients. So it's not enough to keep me busy Monday through Friday with the things that I have going on. So the reserves, of course, that bring in some money. But then I also wanted to find a job that works with me and it's, I guess, flexible. And I do substituting. And the reason I say that is because one day I was eating my lunch and I find a gentleman across from me that he was working on his computer. And I just say, hey, how's it going? And he just does that little nod. I was like, okay, he doesn't want to be bothered, right?
Right.
And after a couple of times like that, we've met each other there, but we really don't interact at all. Some other, Mexicano comes in and he's like, "Yo, ¿cómo está?" I was like, "Oh, bien, ¿y usted?" And the guy in front of me is like, "You speak Spanish? ¿Hablas español?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "This whole time here, I don't want to talk to you because I think you don't speak Spanish." And I was like, "And I'm not saying a word because I think you're busy with your computer and I don't want to bother you." But that actually, we've interacted a couple times, and he has spoken to me about what I do to some other people and things like that. And man, I've had about, I don't know, 7 to 10 different interactions with different individuals because of that one person, and just having a sit down and just having a regular conversation.
Okay, when you start explaining and talking about finance and talking about what you can do with their money to help them out, is there like literally totally not even knowledgeable whatsoever, not even a little bit, or do they maybe have an idea of people that says some things, but you're kind of sort of clarifying what it really means to do that?
So I think I would say about 95% of my clients have never had an investment account outside of their 401k. Some of them don't work for companies that don't even offer a 401k. So that's where the IRA needs to step in. But some of them are knowledgeable. They know that it's out there. I have a couple clients young ladies that they're professional workers, really good at what they do. Some of them have their masters and they're excellent at their job, and they know that they need to be investment. They know that a 401k matching and an IRA exists. But that's about it, right? So they know the basics of it. So then that's when they reach out to me and say, "Hey, Omar, I know this is your strength. Can you help us out with it?" So some of them have to start from zero. Others, I get to start from 5 or 7.
Yeah. Okay, so with the first conversation that you have with anybody, once their guard's down, once they see your facing up and they kind of trust you, how does the conversation start about with anybody, especially a Latino that like is that 90 something that doesn't have anything? How does the first conversation go with you?
The first thing is, it depends who I'm talking to, right? I've had clients that they're in their 60s and they've never invested before, and they're like, "I don't qualify for Social Security. I haven't worked enough. I do this and I do that. What can I do to maybe in 10 years when I'm 72 do something?" So it's just figuring out, hey, what are your goals? First of all, what's your budget look like? What's your emergency savings look like? And what's your goals? What is it that you're trying to achieve, and when are you trying to achieve this? Because I've had clients that they say, "How much can I earn by next year?" And I was like, if your goal is to use those funds next year, then I'm not the person for you. I recommend a high yield savings account that we do offer, but investment is not the place. And they're like, wait, but that's what you do. And I was like, it is, but that's not what's best for you, because worst case is market drops 36%, 33% in 11 months, and now you need it. That's the worst case. Best case scenario is it continues going up, but that's not where we want to be. So it's, finding out the goals, when they want to reach them, and then explain to them how I can help them get there.
Do you do any analysis as far as tackling if they have too much debt, if they don't have enough money going on? How important is it to save as much as you want to? Because our culture is so good about spending money with carne asadas, drinking every weekend, and different things like that. Is any of that things that you kind of sort of educate them about? Maybe seeing if you have unnecessary subscriptions, seeing if you have unnecessary things that you really don't need that you might want to eliminate. Any other stuff that you talk to them about?
Yeah. So I think the first step is going through that budget, right? And I'll have clients that'll say, "Hey, I know you can go through this budget all day long, and I'm only going to have $100 at the end of the day." And I'm like, okay. But then I've had clients that say, "I don't have any money to invest or anything like that." And with the way I set it up was $25 a month, you can start investing. I feel that everybody should have and can have $25 extra a month to invest. And I actually had someone challenge me on that the other day, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to argue with you, but let's go ahead and do a budget. And then she's like, well, I know I spend money on this, I spend money on that. And I was like, okay, so now even you're recognizing that you're spending money on things that you shouldn't, that you don't even need.
Yeah.
instead of setting up yourself for the future,
And you
right?
just lost the bet.
Exactly. Exactly. So I think the key is the budget. And a lot of people realize that, most clients have an extra $800 extra a month that they don't know where it's going. And it's just, I use the example of, it's like the budget is pretty much, it's not airtight. It's like grabbing water with your hands. Yeah, you're going to grab water, right? But after a couple of minutes, you look down and it's gone. And if you don't have that airtight budget, it's exactly the same thing. Payday comes along Friday, and you're going to have that paycheck. But then, especially the younger folks, and I love talking to high school students where I like, y'all are 18, 19.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to party Friday, Saturday. And let's be honest, you're probably going to party Sunday night too. And then Monday, you look down and it's gone. And it's because you don't have an airtight budget. So that's where we try to start and go from there.
Yeah. Yeah, because okay, so tell me a time where a person you were doing something like that, trying to work on their budget, didn't really feel like they had money once you started working everything out and realized how much money they spent. How life changing it was that for them, and how surprised and like their mind was blown to realize how much money it's like, oh my goodness.
Well, I would like to say that it's life changing for everybody, but that's not the case, right? Because a lot in 17 years of financial experience and being in the finance industry, I've only met about 4 or 5 people that do a budget on a regular basis. Nobody likes to do a budget. I don't like to do a budget, but luckily for me, I married someone that loves to do a budget. And every like November, she goes and gets a calendar like this big or an agenda for the next year. And my wife writes everything there. I don't like to do that. So here's my money, and you tell me how much I can spend, and I'm happy with that because I don't have to go through the budget.
Mm-hmm.
So in about 17 years, only 5 people that give or take like to do a budget, and no one else really cares for, because it tells you the truth. It tells you that you're spending more money than you need to, or that you even have, right? And I've had clients and I remember this young lady, she had about $580 extra per month. And she's like, I don't know where that's going. And we look through her statements, and it's Chick-fil-A, and it's going out, and, a shot here, a shot there kind of thing. So that's where it goes. And I've had other, especially young Latinos, that they might see the budget and they might know that they have an extra $1,800 left. And this is after you gave yourself $1,500 of entertainment per month, and they still don't change anything, right? So I get to see both ends. And then sometimes I get a little discouraging when I see these, people making good money and they still don't want to change their habits, but they say they do, they just don't do it.
What do you think is lacking on that part? How come they're not able to execute the part, even though they know? Because they say knowledge is power, but really not. It's knowledge is power with execution, knowing that what you know, you should be doing it in order to make things happen, right?
I'm going to use that with execution.
Yeah.
Keeping up with the with the Joneses. We have especially young Latinos that want that nice truck, and I tell when I go to these high school presentations, I see the parking lot, and a lot of them have a, F-150, 4-door, King Ranch, lifted, dropped, whatever it is, right? And I joke with them, and I was like, we all want to look wealthy, but we don't want to do the things that make us wealthy. Because I was like, who has a truck here? And I was like, without raising hands, who has a truck? Okay, now we're going to leave that truck the way it is stock, or are we going to lift it, put in that 6-inch lift, 24-inch tires, 20-inch rims? And they all just start laughing because it hits home, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times we want to look that wealthy part when we should be living that frugal life, so that one day we can be wealthy.
What do you think can help our culture with that? Besides, of course, education and you having to do that thing, what else can you feel like can help kind of sort of start developing that culture of being more frugal, being more conscious about your spending, and not trying to impress everybody on Instagram because you have a lifted truck and blah, blah, blah?
I think even schools today are doing things that definitely weren't being offered when I was going through high school back in the early 2000s. They're offering money matter classes. And now today it's like, well, they didn't teach me that in school. They didn't teach me that. Now they are. But even then, it's just, I think sometimes it's a cultural thing of to us, sometimes wealth and looking rich and having that truck means you made it, right? And for a lot of Latinos is if you have that truck, you know, 4-door, King Ranch, whatever, that means you're doing really well. But what honestly it means is that you have a huge truck payment if you can't pay that cash, if you don't come from money, things like that. I've met students in high school that have $30,000 trucks on loans that their parents co-signed, working at Little Caesars, you know? And when I tell them, because I love doing the math, that compound interest calculator, I love bringing it out to students and saying, hey, this is 30,000 you said your truck is worth. What would you rather have? 30,000 or sorry, what would you rather have? The truck right now or 500,000 by the time you're 55? Every one of them has said, I want that $500,000. And I was like, okay, you already have that, but you're not saving it the way. And I'll bust it out. And they're just kind of like, oh man, you're right. You know? But I think we get tied up. Once we start earning that money, we forget about it and we go back to our habits.
Yeah. I mean, you start working, you start seeing money coming in, and you want to be part of society and be out and about doing social things, and it's kind of difficult to stay disciplined.
I did a presentation one time for a school, and it was right before lunch, and I'm going through and I told them, hey, $100 a month for X amount of years will get you $290,000. And everybody's just like, wow, okay. Bell rings, they go to lunch, and one student stays behind, and he's like, hey, mister, do you think that one day I can actually have 290,000? And I was like, sir, if by the time you're 60, you only have 290,000,
You're in trouble.
you messed up. You messed up bad, because if with you being 17 years old now, you have something that's way more valuable than any money can buy you, and that's time. You have time, and that's the most important part when it's to create wealth. And he's like, okay, I'm going to reach out to you whenever I graduate. And I was like, okay. Graduation comes. He had told me he was going to go work. He already had a job lined up doing construction, driving heavy equipment. And sure enough, he was. So I reached out to him. I was like, hey, I see you're doing well. You have a great paying job. You ready to get that started? Oh no, I'll do it. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next week. I'll do it a month from now. And it's been over a year and a half, and he has yet to reach out to me. So we just forget, because now he has enough money to buy that truck, to do X, Y, Z. And the last thing on his mind is that 299,000 that he thought was unattainable.
Yeah. And then, hopefully he doesn't have a kid immediately if he's young, because then forget about that plan. Don't say anything.
Yeah.
'Cause that's going to put even your goals even further back, because you have to take care of priorities, which is your kids, which of course, yeah. But, or the truck or whatever is priority instead of whatever is going to be in the future. Man, it's so crazy, because I don't blame the kid, because I was the same way. I think all of us were the same way, right? As far as like, what about it later?
I feel like my dad was very backwards, and I don't know if I hit the lottery or the misfortune, because being Latino and being my dad, being, traditional Mexicano, most Mexicano parents' dads are going to be like, hey, he's the only boy in the family, so he's going to just pretty much chill, no washing dishes, no sweeping, no nothing, right? No, my dad was like, I remember him, I was like, hey, just because you pick up the broom, wash dishes, doesn't mean you're going to grow a skirt, okay? Go ahead, just like your sisters, you're going to do exactly the same thing, and they're going to do the same thing. You're not better than them, you're not worse than them, you're the same. So pick up, start, sweeping. So yeah, I mean,
So install the work ethic even from the beginning, instead of having those like, you're a boy, you're not supposed to be doing that. You can still do those things.
Yeah, and when I graduated, of course, who doesn't want that nice truck? Everybody, every young individual, every young teenager wants that nice vehicle, whatever it is. If you're into racing, you want that Honda, whatever, that Z, whatever. But with me, my dad was like, what are you doing? You're working at Taco Bell. You can't afford that. But I can if I... Yeah, that's if you don't pay any bills, which you're not paying any bills now, but your one job right now is education, things like that. So his thing was, it resounded with me, where he didn't let me do a lot of dumb things. Looking back, they were dumb at the point. I was like, man, why can't I do that? Yeah.
I mean, he was setting you up for the future, not to be like maybe your credit messed up. Maybe you
Yeah.
couldn't afford to be able to buy those pay those payments
Yeah.
and mess up your credit, and you're not even be able to be hired by Chase because
Exactly.
or
They check your
or
credit.
or a
Yeah.
financial advisor because
Yeah.
your credit is
Yeah.
messed up. All that stuff, you know what I mean? We don't think about it again. And I get the kid and I get it, but we don't realize how fast time passes by just like this, and before you know, we had a lights came on. I don't know what turned them on, but it's just like that, right? And again, I think a lot of people are in that position. But it's great that people like you exist. Are you taking on any young clients at all whatsoever? They're kind of sort of even they don't have so much money, but maybe they have 50, 60, $100 that they can be able to start doing that, and maybe start saving and putting it somewhere. So maybe 50 years old, something they can see a difference.
Yeah, I tell them you can start with $25, and I have a few clients that have started with $25, and I tell them $25 isn't going to get you to become a millionaire, in the future. But next year we're going to do 50. The year after that we're going to do 100, and we're going to continue increasing it until we reach that goal. So I have people doing $25, and I have people doing a couple of thousands of dollars a month. So I help whoever wants to be helped.
Yeah, as far as like financial advisors and things like that of services, it's long term relationships, long term things,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Because you're already planning out within 5 years what you're gonna be doing. You have goals for them to 25 1 year, 50, and so on and so forth to help them out. And of course, they're gonna be able to see a bigger difference if they continue the pattern of doing
Exactly.
those
Yep.
things. You know?
I tell them the hardest thing is starting. The second hardest is being consistent with it, and then the third hardest is getting to that 100,000.
Yeah, 100,000. Okay. I know you kind of talked a little bit about it, but tell me why do you do the things that you do now? Why?
When I used to work for the previous company, Chase, unfortunately, and I don't blame them. The more money you manage, the more you get paid, right? And I worked in low income areas. You have your stop six right there on 820 in Ramey. That branch was my first one, and then 30 in Beach, in the east side of Fort Worth. But they had what's called the kind of the Bermuda Triangle, which is three branches, kind of east, south, east Fort Worth. That really nobody, no advisor really wanted to go because they felt that there was no money there. And if there's no money there, then I'm not going to get compensated the way I would at a different location like South Lake, Hollyville, things like that. And I kind of took that as a slap in the face because all my family lived in that area. So when you say you don't want me to tell the manager that you speak Spanish because if not, they're going to put you in this area, that's a jab on my family,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's why I wanted to go back and say, hey, you know what? They might not have millions of dollars like I do in South Lake, but I know they have money. And one day, if I can just change one or two lives of, I reached a parent and they start a 529 college account for their child when they're a couple months old and they're able to go to college and not take out loans because of that, then I'll call that a win.
Awesome. What do you think is the biggest challenge for the Latino culture to creating generational wealth?
I think we're used to, especially like for example, with my family, that we come from a farming town where people don't really ever retire, right? Their retirement is when they can no longer go work the fields and their children are going to take care of them. That just happens to live next door, because that's pretty much every rancho in Mexico. So I feel like we've taken that mindset that we've had for centuries and applied it here in the US, where we're just going to continue working and working, but we're no longer living with our relatives and are easily able to take care of us like they once did. So a lot of us just rely on Social Security, and they think that Social Security is retirement, and they don't understand that the average Social Security is about $1,900 in today's world. And what is that really going to get you? So I think a lot of cultural,
If it's still around in the
yeah,
near future.
yeah, and actually 2033, if nothing changes, it'll drop about 25% just off the bat. But I think that cultural, the way things were, we were accustomed to doing, and now wanting to look wealthy, wanting to keep up with the Joneses, definitely getting us in trouble.
Your kids are not your retirement plan. Say it with me. Your kids are not your retirement plan. You need to go ahead and start now to do some of that stuff.
Yeah.
You have to. What is the most exciting thing you've done so far today as far as your job or in the past 2-3 months for you?
Helping a couple young ladies that they said, we've always wanted to do something. We've heard about investments, things like that, but we've never known who to go to or how to do it. And luckily, they were a referral from someone. Actually, their mom was a referral, and one of the daughters just happened to bring her on board, or bring her to the appointment. And she's like, "I'm going to talk to you about to my sister." And both sisters came in, and they're like, "All right." One of them was like, "Hey, I'm pretty somewhat knowledgeable." The other one wasn't, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll take it as slow as y'all want. We'll start from zero and work our way up. So if it's too basic, just tell me to skip that, and we'll go from there." So just helping them. That, in other words, in another world, maybe another advisor wouldn't have been able or wanted to help them out, just because they're starting out their careers, right? So they don't have millions of dollars. So hopefully one day or if we continue working, we'll get there, but not today. And helping them definitely is very crucial.
Awesome. We're running short on time. We got just a couple more questions before I let you go. All your social media, where can people reach you at? Where can they find you? And do you have any events, any classes, presentation you have here in the near future?
No classes yet. Different holidays, people are traveling, but YouTube, Instagram,
I saw
TikTok.
the new video you put up, I think it was yesterday, right?
Yes,
It's Spanish, it's Espanol.
I do a lot of them in Spanish, but everything at Blue Ladder FP. At
Okay.
Blue Ladder FP.
It's going to be on the description. Any saludos, shout outs, anything that you have for any?
Yes, of course, to all my familia, la familia Aguilar, and Enriquez as well, Padilla. And actually to my son, who is 3 weeks old. Actually, just turned a month. Sorry, I apologize. So a
Yeah.
month old, finally got the boy and 2 daughters.
Awesome. Congratulations. He'll see this video in many years from now. Like, oh, he was talking about me.
Yeah.
Okay. What is an important lesson that you learned doing financial advisor that you would tell your younger self that will help somebody else out? What would that be?
The more you can do at the beginning, the more you'll have in the back end. Because I remember investing through 2008 and seeing my funds go down every time I would deposit 100. I would wake up the next day and it's at $98, $97. And I'm like, why am I even doing this? When I was living with my parents, had no bills, I should have been doing $200, $300, and I'd be a lot further today.
Awesome. It's something that I usually say throughout my day or sometime. I'm not immortal. I am mortal, and I will die one day. A quote that I heard from a gentleman that I really liked, and just to realize that we're not here forever. It's a reality of life, right? I'm not to wish it or scare me or terrify me, anything like that. It's just a reality of life, right? We are mortal one of these days. It's not going
That's
to
right.
be anymore. But with that, I wish you a long, prosperous life. However, after everything is said and done, what do you want people to think and feel about your life?
Oh man, that's a good question. That he wanted to help others. That, and sometimes I think about writing my own obituary. So I've heard that, like, hey, every so often write your own obituary. And that because he had this dream, a lot of other people could fulfill theirs.
Awesome. Okay. So thank you so much. I appreciate your sharing and telling us about what is it that you do. It's amazing that being in banking or being in finances and all in general, you hear about financial advisor's term and how it makes sense for them to manage a lot of more money because it makes more money for them based on whatever their fees are going to be at the end of the day. And, you know, but I don't know. I just feel like your approach is different, which is not as immediately rewarding like you want it to be. But the work that you're doing, I think, is going to compound over time with generations. Hopefully, the young ones that you're already talking to be able to continue to spread the word about who you are and help more people put them in a better position. Because it is true. Your money in any place sitting down, whether it be under the mattress, not just banks, or anywhere, it's not going to do anything for you, right? If you don't even have the concept of eliminating debt or creating an emergency fund for yourself, or where you even begin to what is the right investment for you, then you already suffer failure. You don't have the foundation that you talked about. So I think your work that you continue to do with your company that you began, it's great work that we need for our community and the reason why you do it. So without a shadow of a doubt, Omar, you are a global Latin factor. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for having me.
This was another episode of the Global Latin Factor podcast. Remember to join the community. Subscribe today to the Global Latin Factor. Check out these amazing stories. Get some knowledge. Get inspired. And remember, we are just like you. We are humans. We are this spice in this melting pot that it is the world. Till next time, bus. Thank you very much for checking out this episode of the Global Latin Factor podcast. Make sure you go and subscribe to the channel and check out one of the other episodes that we have prepared for you. Thank you very much. Till next time.
Walks like a pero but in fact is a flamingo. Coming to Havana and reflecting.